Hi team. We will start our today's session sharp at 7 p.m. So let's wait for another 2 minutes, 2 to 5 minutes, and we'll start sharp at 7. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. This is uh, this is Sam from Obscura Zone. Thanks everyone for joining this session. Today, we're going to discuss on Selenium interview questions. So this is part one of the series where we'll be discussing mostly asked interview questions related to Selenium and test automation. If you have any questions, feel free to comment your questions. We will try to answer them towards the end. So without any delay, let's get started. So the first question that we're going to discuss here is explain your automation framework. So this is one of the most repeated question that is normally asked in automation interviews. So this is basically asked to candidates who have written in their resume that they have worked on automation frameworks. So most of the candidates fail to answer this question in a proper way. So how to answer this question? How to explain the framework? So basically, these are some of the points that you may need to consider before answering a question like this. So you can start answering this question by talking about the programming language that is used in the framework. You can explain the type of framework that is used. If you're having a data driven framework, you can say like you're using a data driven framework using page object model as a design pattern. Similarly, you can talk about the package structure or the folder structure of your framework. So if you are using a maven based folder structure, you can say like you're using that. Then you can talk about the capabilities of the framework. So if you are if you have any particular utilities that is used in the framework, you can talk about that. If there is any utility created to interact with Excel, you can mention the utilities. And another point is you can talk about the reporting mechanism that is used in the framework. So reporting is an important factor for the automation framework. So if you are having the default reports, you can say you are using TestNG report, or if you have any third-party libraries integrated, third-party reports integrated, you can talk about that. Then you can talk about the version control systems. If it is Git, you can say you have using Git in the project, or if it is a TFS or SVN, you can say that is a version control system used in the project. Then you can talk about the integration mechanism with the CI/CD tools. So if you are using tools like Jenkins, you can say how the automation scripts are executed in the continuous integration environment. And at last, if you have enough experience in creating the framework or contributing something to the framework, you can explain your contribution. So this is also important. You can explain with 100% confidence that what you have created or what you have contributed to the framework. So these are some of the most important points that you may need to consider while explaining your framework. Okay, so hope you got an idea about how to explain the framework in your interviews. Now, moving on to the next question, what are the different types of automation frameworks? So there are many classifications available. So some of the classifications, the very basic classification that you can provide is based on the type of design. So basically, we have different types of automation frameworks like modular testing framework, which is based on module concept. Then we have a data-driven framework based on the data-driven testing concept. Then we have a keyword driven framework, which is basically based on keywords. Then we have hybrid testing framework, which is basically the combination of different approaches. And then we have behavior driven development framework, BDD framework, which is something related to Agile. So these are some of the most widely used automation frameworks. So you can just explain these frameworks. So we have questions related to these different frameworks in the coming slides. So you'll get a better understanding what these frameworks are. Moving on to the next question, what is modular testing framework? So what is modular testing? So modular testing framework, the concept is basically we consider the application into different modules and consider automating it. So the application is divided into different clusters or modules, and the main peculiarity of this modular testing framework is to bring a layer of abstraction. So advantages of modular testing framework is if any changes are made to the application, only the module that is associated with the individual test script will need to be fixed. So, and also the creating test cases takes less effort because test scripts for different modules can be reused. So the reusability is very high. So typically you create different modules, and the test data also resides inside the scripts, and these scripts can be combined to form a larger script so that the testing will become easier. So the disadvantage of this kind of framework is data is hard coded into the test script, and these tests are executed separately. So we don't have the provision to execute a different set of data. So data hard coding is one of the disadvantage of modular testing framework. And also a good amount of programming knowledge is required to set up a framework like this. So these are some of the major disadvantages of modular testing framework. So this is not a widely used framework, but it is a kind of legacy framework, but still you need to have the understanding about this approach. Moving on to the next question, what do you mean by data driven testing framework? So data driven testing framework, the name itself says data driven testing, which means data is provided from an external data sources like CSV files, text files, or SQL tables, and it is used to drive the application. So the main peculiarity of a data driven testing framework is the data is separated from the script logic, or the test data is separated from the script logic. Which that main advantage of this kind of framework is you can have different sets of test data. Let's say we have if you have a particular scenario, and if you need to test it in a different combination, you don't need to again write script for that. You can just reuse the existing data set. So that is one of the major advantage of having a data driven framework. Now, hard coding is avoided here, which means you don't have any test data written inside the script. We have it separately inside the data source, like Excel spreadsheets. So if you want to change, if you want to test the script or the scenario with a different test set of data, you can just change the data set. You can make changes in the Excel so that you can get it tested. So hard coding is completely avoided here. It will save the a lot of it will save the execution time, and the test will run more faster. The main disadvantage of this kind of framework is you need a highly experienced tester who is proficient in programming language to properly utilize this framework. So it will take significant amount of time in order to design this framework. So the designing this framework is a very difficult task. But once it is designed, you can easily use it, because it is easy to maintain. You can just make changes in the test data combinations. Moving on to the next question, what do you mean by keyword driven framework? So keyword driven framework is something similar to data driven framework. It has got something additional, that is keyword driven approach. So keyword driven approach means you will have keywords written or keywords created, which will basically controls the flow of application. So let's say in this example, the image that is shown on the screen, you can see launch is the keyword given to open a browser. So the program will be already written to handle launch function. So you just need to give the launch keyword. Based on the keyword, the application will perform operations. So one of the major advantage of having keyword driven framework is, so once it is created, you don't require any programming language. You don't need any programming expertise to create scripts. You just need to have the understanding how to provide the right keyword and where to provide the right keyword. So basically, whatever operations that you need to perform through the automation framework, you can just provide that in an external data source like Excel. So every actions like open the browser, navigate to some particular URL, or entering data, this can be completely updated from the data source. So the advantages of keyword driven framework is minimum scripting knowledge is required. The keywords can be used across multiple test scripts, so it is highly reusable. And here, as it is an extension of data driven framework, the scripts, the test data is completely independent of the scripts. Now, the disadvantage of this kind of framework is it will take a significant amount of time to design this framework, as the initial part of creating the keywords, the logic is going to be complex. So it needs a good programming skill set to create a framework like this. So keywords can be hassle to maintain when scaling a test operation. So if you are looking to scale the framework, it is going to be complex and more difficult. These are some of the disadvantages of keyword driven framework. Now let's discuss the other question, another question, that is, how do you what do you mean by hybrid automation framework? So hybrid automation framework is basically a combination of uh, keyword driven framework and data driven framework. So the name itself says hybrid, which means combination of multiple approaches. So the main advantages of hybrid framework is it has got all advantages of the previously discussed keyword driven and data driven frameworks. And the disadvantages is tests are fully scripted in hybrid testing framework, which this increases the automation effort. In both keyword driven and data driven approaches, the effort required to create the automation framework is very high. So these are some of the advantages of hybrid automation framework. So nowadays, most of the framework you see is basically the combination of different approaches. So it will have something from the modular approach, it will have something from keyword driven approach, it will have something good from the data driven approach. So it is always hybrid. Moving on to the next question, what do you mean by BDD automation framework? So BDD automation framework is something that is related to agile way of doing things. So this framework is basically brings a kind of shared understanding. kind of shared understanding between the stakeholders. So if you want to create a BDD based automation framework, you need to have expertise in tools like Cucumber, SpecFlow, or JBehave. So these are available in different programming languages. So all these tools make use of the behavior driven approach, where uh, the scenarios are written in a format called as Jerkin syntax, that is the format of given, when, and then. So in the screen you can see a simple login scenario is written in plain English using given, when, and then format. So using the tools like Cucumber, it will automatically create the basic code required to automate this. So if you're having expertise in tools like Selenium, you can use the existing Selenium knowledge or Selenium expertise to fill in the code inside these Cucumber generated scripts. So the main advantages of behavior driven development framework is you don't you can use non-technical language, so basically to create a shared understanding, that is tester, developer, business analyst, or the client side, someone from the client side, they all can understand the scenarios just reading this scripts written in basic plain English. The disadvantage of this kind of framework is, if you're following a BDD based framework, you have to know you have to have the expertise in tools like Cucumber or SpecFlow or any other tools that supports BDD. So this framework is popular nowadays because of the uh, high popularity of Agile. So it is very important to understand or start learning BDD based automation frameworks. Now, we have another question, that is, what is page object model? So this is one of the most widely asked questions in any automation interviews. So basically, page object model or called as POM, is basically a design pattern in Selenium that creates an object repository for storing all web elements. In page object model, classes are created for pages. So each class will contain declarations corresponding to the web page elements, and methods or functions corresponding to the user actions or behaviors in each page. So you can see in the screen a page is created. So let's say we are having an application where we have n number of pages. A sign in page is one of the page which we have taken. So we will create a page a class corresponding to sign in page, which will basically contain elements, the elements present in the page, like username, password, and signing. And we have the methods to, for example, here we have the method to login as a valid user. So that is one of the user action that is happening in the sign in page. And how to use this in the inside the script class, you just need to create an object of this page and access the methods to perform operations. So the main advantage of page object model is increase, it will help to increase, it will help to increase the reusability. It will bring readability and reliability for the scripts. It is very easy to maintain. So these are some of the main advantages of page object model. So moving on to the next question, what is Selenium? So even though the question looks very simple, most of the candidates will fail to answer this question in a proper way. So how can we give a good answer for this question? So Selenium is basically a web-based functional test automation tool, which means Selenium is only capable of automating web-based applications. So what do you mean by functional test automation tool? So it supports functional testing, the testing types like sanity, regression, integration testing, UAT. So these all things comes under functional testing. So this is what Selenium is capable of. Then Selenium is not a single tool. It is basically a suite of automation testing tools based on JavaScript framework. So what are the different tools that comes under Selenium suite? So we have Selenium IDE, then we have WebDriver and Selenium Grid. So WebDriver is one of the most widely used version of Selenium. So Selenium Grid is also popular, but Selenium IDE is very less used or very often used because of its functionalities. So Selenium 3 is the latest version from Selenium. Selenium 4 is on the way. The official release is yet to come. So next question, why do you prefer Selenium? So to give an answer to this question, you need to understand what are the different other tools available in the market similar to Selenium. So there are tools like Catalan Studio, tools like UFT, Test Complete, SOP UI. So these all are automation tools. So they are designed. They came to market in different years. They support different applications under test. They support different platforms. They will be written in different scripting languages. They support different programming skills, like some of them are does not require any programming language. Some of them requires Java, some of them requires .NET, some of them requires VB script. So the easiness of these tools also differ. So compared to these tools, what is their special with Selenium? So Selenium supports maximum number of languages, programming languages, and frameworks. It is completely open source, and it supports maximum number of browsers. So Selenium supports various operating systems. It has got high reusability and supports maximum number of integrations. Selenium also has got the parallel test execution capability. So these all capabilities or these all functionalities of Selenium helps to bring faster go-to-market for any projects. So these are some of the main reasons why we prefer Selenium, why we should use Selenium in any project. Now, what are the disadvantages of Selenium? Selenium has also got disadvantages. So the main disadvantage is it supports only web-based testing. So you can only perform automation activities on the web part. So there are tools which support web, API side, and the database. So Selenium only supports something that we see on the screen, or any automation that can be performed on the web UI. So that can be automated using Selenium. It needs good programming expertise. So that is another disadvantage of Selenium. If you want to be an expert in Selenium, you need to be proficient in either C Sharp, Java, or Python, or any other programming language that is supported by Selenium. So you need to integrate third-party tools to your framework. If you want to have a scalable framework, definitely we want to integrate different um, libraries, so different capabilities to the framework using the third-party tools. So you need to have that expertise. So it does not provide any reliable technical support. So whatever, if you come up across any problems or any issues, you need to resolve it by your own. So you can find help from the net. You can search and find the results, but you will not get any reliable technical support from Selenium team. So it also has a limited support for image testing. So these are some of the main disadvantages of Selenium. So if image testing is not supported, you have to integrate the third-party tools which can bring you that functionality or that feature. So the next question is, what is the architecture of Selenium WebDriver? So basically, Selenium WebDriver has three main components, that is Selenium client libraries, browser drivers, and real browser, or the actual browsers. So what is Selenium client libraries? Selenium client library is basically the language binding that we download in order to set up Selenium. So it is available in Python or C Sharp, or the language programming language that Selenium is supported. Then we have browser drivers. So that is Chrome driver.exe for doing activities in Chrome, and the Firefox driver to do activities in Firefox. Similarly, for all other browsers, we have the browser drivers. So these two components, the client libraries and browser drivers, interact using a protocol named JSON Wire Protocol. So JSON Wire Protocol is basically a legacy protocol that is no more supported by Selenium. That is, from version 4 of Selenium, we'll be having a different protocol. So it is basically a protocol which will communicate using the JSON structure. So this, after this communication, the browser drivers will interact with the real browsers using HTTP. So this is the high level architecture of Selenium WebDriver. So next question is, why automation testing? So there are a lot of reasons why we should use automation in any project. So automation is always fast, or the testing will become more faster when automation is brought. It is highly reliable. The scripts that you are creating through automation will be highly reusable. It will improve the accuracy of your test results. This it will So let's say if you have any repeated test cases, like regression or smoke test cases. So whenever we have a requirement to run this in a repeated fashion, it will bring, if you're automating the script or it using the automation script, then it will basically saves time and money. So automation also reduces human generated errors. Now, from a project perspective, what is the advantage of automation? So normally we be having manual testing in a traditional or in normal project, and when automation is done, the initial cost will be very high. But once the automation framework is created, or once you have everything in place, the cost required for automation will will reduce, and it gets stabilized. But the cost of manual testing will always increase. So from a project perspective, automation will always bring cost savings. So definitely automation is a cost saving factor. So these are some of the main reasons why someone should recommend automation testing in any project. Now, what are the Selenium suite components and when they are used? So basically, Selenium has three main components: Selenium WebDriver, Selenium IDE, and Selenium Grid. Selenium WebDriver is a component that is mainly used if you have to create a if you have a requirement to create a scalable automation framework, then you have to use Selenium WebDriver. So it supports different languages. Like, we have the implementations available in most widely used languages like Java, C Sharp, Python, etc. Now, Selenium ID is another variant of Selenium, which is basically used when we just need to do some exploratory testing, or if you just want to just automate the scenarios quickly, then you can go for Selenium IDE. But you cannot create a scalable framework with this. Now we have a Selenium Grid, that is another variant of Selenium, which is basically used for distributed testing, and for testing across different environments. So these are the three main variants of Selenium that is used. Now, next question is explain weights in Selenium. So this is also one of the important questions that is normally asked in any Selenium interviews. So basically, there are three types of weights: implicit weight, explicit weight, and fluent weight. So what is implicit weight? Implicit weight in Selenium is basically used to tell the WebDriver to wait for a certain amount of time before throwing a no such element exception. So the default setting is 0. So once we set the time, driver will wait for the element for that time to before throwing an exception. So basically, let's say we are giving a 10-second as implicit wait. So it is applicable for the entire driver instance. So wherever the script is supposed to fail, it will additionally wait for another 10 seconds before throwing the exception. And then we have explicit wait. So explicit wait allow your code to hold the program execution or freeze the thread until the condition that you provide resolves. So basically, the condition is called within certain frequency until the timeout of the wait is elapsed. So there is a feature, or uh, there is expected conditions class in Selenium, which can be used to provide different conditions. So this explicit wait is applicable for elements. It is an intelligent wait where we can provide conditions using expected conditions class. Now we have fluent wait. Fluent wait is something similar to explicit wait, where additionally we have the option to poll the DOM, poll the HTML in a specific duration. Let's say if you have to verify something that appears in the UI for a very fraction of second, you can poll the DOM for that particular fraction, and you can provide the condition, so that once the condition is provided, once it satisfies, it will click and continue. So the fluent wait, the additional features compared to explicit wait is it has the capability to provide polling time, and also it has we can provide the timeout duration, and we can provide exceptions. We can provide settings to ignore the exceptions. For example, if you want to ignore a particular exception, you can mention that in the wait. So these are some of the main peculiarities of fluent wait. So these three ways are commonly used within Selenium, and it is extremely important to understand the concepts of wait in order to handle a framework, in order to create um, a very good automation framework. So what do you mean by automation framework? So there are a lot of framework available. So you got some idea about what is framework, but here you need to know what is the definition of framework. So basically, automation framework is not a single tool or process, but it is basically the collection of tools and processes working together to support automated testing of any application. It integrates various components like libraries, test data, design principles, practices, and various reusable modules. So, if you have an automation framework, it will basically improve the test efficiency. It will lower the maintenance cost. It will decrease the manual intervention, and will provide maximum test coverage using the reusability of code. So these are main advantage that you have once you start using the framework. Now, next question is, what do you mean by assertion in Selenium? So assertion in Selenium is basically used as a verification point. It verifies that the state of application conforms to what is expected. So basically, when you're using tools, when you're having a framework, definitely you have to make use of any of the unit testing tools, like we have TestNG and JUnit in Java. There is MS test and any unit in .NET, or we have PY unit in Python. So these are some of the unit testing frameworks that are available, which can be used to uh, do assertions. So a script will be completed only if you have assertion inside that. Then only can be termed as a test. So assertions, basically there are a lot of features available inside each of these frameworks, but the basic features will be almost same. So there are options to assert the presence of boolean value. There are options to assert two strings, whether whether they are matching or not. So it is extremely important to have an assertion in every test. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. So how do you handle CAPTCHA in automation? So what is CAPTCHA? CAPTCHA is basically the short form of completely automated public Turing test to tell computers and human apart. So this is explicitly designed to prevent automation. So it is better not to try it. But if you are getting a question like this, how to handle CAPTCHA in automation? So what should be the answer? So basically, there are two options in order to handle CAPTCHA. So the first option is, or the recommended option is to disable CAPTCHA in test environment so that you can complete the testing. And later point, if you want, you can enable it. But is there any way to automate CAPTCHA? Yes, there are options. There are services available which will help you to automate certain kind of CAPTCHAs. So it is not recommended to use these CAPTCHAs, but is there an option? Yes, we have that option using certain services. So moving on to the next question, have you created any framework? So have you created any automation framework so far? So you can give different answers based on the level of expertise you're having. So if you are a beginner, you can say, okay, I don't get chance to create the framework from scratch. I have used a framework which is already available. So you can say like your contribution is mostly in creating test cases by using the existing frameworks. But if you are a beginner and if you have a good knowledge in creating frameworks, then you can give a different answer, something like you can say you have created or you have involved in developing framework along with the automation testers in the company. But if you are an experienced tester, then definitely you should say, okay, I have contributed to the development of framework, or you can say like you have created the framework from the scratch. If you can manage, you can say like, there was no automation process in the company, and you have designed the framework from the scratch. So in this case, the interviewer will be expecting, or interviewer will be asking you like how you have created the framework. So what are the design principles used? What are the different tools used in creating the framework? So you should be confident enough to answer in this way. Now, moving on to the next question. So when do you use Selenium Grid? So Selenium Grid is basically used. Let's take one example. You are having thousand number of scripts created. Okay, thousand number of script. You have thousand scripts. Now It is taking like 8 or 9 hours to run the scripts to complete the execution, and you have to decrease the execution time. Then you can go for Selenium Grid. So Selenium Grid, you can connect different machines to the server. You can configure the grid to run on multiple Chrome instances or multiple Firefox instances, so that it will run parallelly in different machines, and the test execution time will be reduced. So it can also be used when you have a requirement to run across different environments. Let's say you have to run your scripts on a Mac machine or on a Linux machine, then definitely you should go for Selenium Grid, so that you can configure or you can add different machines to the server, the Selenium hub, and you can trigger the scripts from a local machine. So Selenium Grid has the capability to perform execute scripts in multiple platforms concurrently, achieving the distributed testing. So that's what we have planned for this session. So this is part one of the session where we have covered some of the most widely asked interview questions. Now, let us, if you have any questions, just type that as comments so that we can discuss it here.